Hey guys, how are y'all today? I'm doing good, thank you for asking. Um, so we are back again, as Nicki Minaj, she said it best. Back to back Mayhack, stack the M's, tell them I'm Slim Shady, we'll be back again. I'm not gonna finish the lyrics, but yes, back again. And this week, I know I usually alternate between travel videos and leadership growth videos, but I haven't traveled recently. I'm not gonna lie to you. Traveling solo is tiring, especially if you're doing it within the states and you're driving. It's very tiring. So I've taken a long break because driving is nice. It's just, I'm telling you, it's very tiring. So taking a break. So today we're just going to jump right into my communication growth. Last week was my leadership growth, and I will put that video in the description box. And this week is going to be my communication growth. Not sure how long this video will last. Hopefully, I'm going to try to not make it as long as the one was last week. But to be honest, even though that video was long, I watched it and I watched it when it wasn't in 2 times speed because I just really enjoyed the conversation that I was having with y'all. And I think that kind of bleeds into communication today because how can you want to communicate with others when you don't even like to communicate with yourself? Over the years, I used to hate communicating. I didn't like talking to people. I didn't even like talking to myself. Like, I'll talk to myself and I'll talk to God, but I would never want to just sit there and be in my own thoughts or just talk to myself out loud because it's weird. But I've come to learn that what, and I've come to learn that the first steps to communicating with others is communicating with yourself. And for all my Christians out there, the first step to communicating with yourself is communicating with God. So that's what I've been learning how to do. Now, why am I having this talk? What does communication have to do with leadership? I'm glad you asked. Communication is very impartial to leadership. Hopefully, I'm using the right word. You know, you learn words and you just start using them in the wrong sentence. So, impartial, is that the right word? Impartial. No. Hey, Google, what does impartial mean?
Impartial is used as an adjective to mean treating all rivals or disputants equally, fair and just as in independent and impartial advice. Do you want to hear a few synonyms for impartial?
Yes.
Here are some words that have a similar meaning to impartial: unbiased, unprejudiced, neutral, nonpartisan, non-discriminatory, and anti-discrimination. Do you want to hear how impartial is spelled?
Don't want to use the word important. Hey, Google, what's another word for important?
On the website languagetool.org, they say a few other words you can use instead of important are essential, critical.
Okay, there we go. Google's got me. So, what I was saying was that communication is very critical. Got you. It's very critical to leadership growth because if how can you lead people, which I know there are some exceptions, Moses being one of them, but we're talking about right now. How can you be very good at leadership if you don't even know how to communicate? Communication is like, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but it's like 50% of leadership, right? Maybe more, to be honest, because leadership is still spelled EXAMPLE. So, yeah, communication is very important to your leadership growth. So, I saw that because, like I said, I'm intentionally growing as a leader, and I saw that. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to work on my communication. I want to be, even on my affirmation wall, I told myself, I want to be the best speaker there is known to be man. Like I want to be up there with John C. Maxwell, which I know that's going to take a lot of work, but I I want my words to flow like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Like I want it to just I want people to hear what I have to say and it just freaking stabs their ears, but in a good way because it's very whatever I say it just convicts people, and it builds people up. It adds value to them. So that's why I'm on this communication journey. And so far for me, I've been reading. So far, I've read a few books that's kind of, not kind of, that has helped me so far with communication. One of them I'm still reading right now. The first one, because you have to start with yourself. You have to start with yourself. I had to take a good look in the mirror at myself and see where is my communication at currently. And so I looked at my speech pattern. I looked at the words I was using, the fillers that I was using, how I was conversating with others, how I was speaking into myself and speaking into others. And I realized it was very poor. It was terrible, actually. It was it was nasty. It was nasty. I had to dig up something nasty. Nasty. Um so I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to work on my communication. So, the two books that I've read, starting with myself, because communication starts with yourself, and if you're a Christian, it starts with God. So, starting with myself, I read What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I recommend that book because it really helps you understand where your mind is at. It helps you understand what's going on up there. It helps you to know what to say to yourself and know what not to say to yourself. Think of it this way, right? If something can be true for the negative, it can also be true for the positive. I remember I was listening to an audio by one of my favorite people in business. His name's Adam Laudenberger. And he said that fear and faith are the same thing. Both are subscribing to something that hasn't yet happened. And so, if something can be true for it in its negative sense, it can be true in its positive sense. For example, if you could sit there and say, man, I can't. Ooh, it felt weird saying can't. Oh my gosh. I haven't used that word in a long time. But if you say, I can't. I'm trying to think of something. I don't use this word, so I can't even think of something. I just did it now. But I'm definitely gonna have to cut out a bunch of parts in here because I'm thinking too hard. If you say I can't get the job done, then know that you could also say I can get the job done, and both of them are true because both of them are true to you. So just know that whatever is negative could also be positive. Whatever is truth and negativity can also be truth and positivity. So that book really speaks on it, and it just it goes back to your childhood too. It starts digging up bones from how it all starts when you're speaking into yourself negativity, and people don't know how much power words hold. Life is in the power of the tongue. And so you can either use those words to build bricks in your life, or you can use those words to just hammer bricks out of your life. And I had decided that I wanted to build bricks in my life because it gets so tiring being negative. And you get to a point where, you know what, if I could speak all this negativity in my life and it's all happening, just imagine if I was to speak positivity in my life. Like, have y'all ever just thought about that? If you could speak so much negativity in your life and it's so powerful that this stuff is happening, imagine if you were to flip it and speak positivity and how much it would happen. And a lot of this has happened in my life where I decided to speak positivity in my life, and whatever it was that I was speaking happened. And I'll give you two examples for both. When I was younger, I used to, not all the time, but sometimes I feel like children just need a mental break. And on those days where I felt like I needed a mental break, I would sit there and lie and say that I was sick so I didn't have to go to school. And when I did that, and I got to stay home. You know how it is in the black household. Your mom's like, well, if you're sick, then you better not laugh, smile, watch TV. You're going to stay in that bed all day, right? And I lied. I was like, I'm sick. I can't go to school. I don't feel too well. But crazy thing is that sometimes on those days that I lied, I actually ended up getting sick. And so I actually was a vegetable in the bed and I couldn't get out and go anywhere because I was sick. So that's just powerful on your words. Another instance is when I was in karate and I was sparring. We used to spar every Thursday night. And my Hanshi, he had asked me, he said, why don't you ever do kicks anymore? Because I was notorious for my kicks, but I had stopped doing them, right? You fall a couple times, it breaks down your confidence. And he was like, why don't you do kicks anymore? And I was like, Hanshi, I suck at kicks. I can't do kicks anymore. Like, I'm just going to fall and blase, blase, bunch of negative stuff. And he was like, all right, try a kick. As soon as I was kicking, right, I was doing a roundhouse kick to the head. And when I tell you, I was kicking with my right leg. And when I tell you my right leg went in the air to make that kick, and my left leg came from underneath me, and I landed straight on the side of my left leg hard. Hard. And he was like, now that you got that out your system, let's get back to work. And I was just like, man, what the heck? So that's just instances where when you speak something into your life and it happens, but that those are the negative instances, right? I said that I was sick because I didn't want to go to school, and guess what? I ended up sick. I said that I can't kick because I suck at it, and guess what? I ended up kicking and I freaking fell flat on my side. So now let's see some instances in my life where I flipped that, where I was like, you know what? Instead of being negative, let me be positive about it. Because the thing is, I don't want to keep going on tangents because I know I do that a lot, but I'll get back to my point. The thing is that when you say something negative in your life, it's like so powerful when you say it and you just believe it so hard. Like when I was younger, I I say younger, but it's legit up until this till this year that I actually started seeing myself as beautiful. And please, I don't need to hear y'all's, I don't want to say pity, but it's just when you have something set in your mind, you believe it. And it was one of those things where it's like, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you think I'm beautiful. I want to think that I'm beautiful. And I just never saw that until up until this year. And so, see, this is why I don't like going on tangents because I forget what I'm going to say. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. But so when I would speak so poorly about myself, I would believe it. Like I would believe it hard. I'd be like, "You're ugly. You're fat. You don't amount to anything." And I'm telling you, I would believe it hard. Like in my mind, it was ingrained in there, and I believed that it was truth, and there was no other option except that I'm just ugly and fat. And I know a lot of people look at me and they're like, "You what? What? You think you're fat?" Yes. Yes, I did. I thought I was fat. I sure did. Thought I was ugly. Sure did. And when you believe something, when you say something over your life so much, that's what you start to see. Even if other people don't see it, but that's just what you start to see. And so the positives of that is when I was in the military, I have two instances, right? I was in the military and I told people, because when we got back from deployment, they were talking about how we have a JRTC. And I was like, I got 1 year in the army left. I'm not going to no JRTC right after deployment as well. I was like, give me a break. I just got off deployment, spent 10 months down range, people trying to kill me. Like, I don't want to go do a training cycle. just give me a couple days, please. And so everybody was like, yeah, we have a JRTC cycle, and then immediately I was like, I'm not going. And they're like, man, yeah, right. I'm like, no, legit, I'm not going. I don't think you're hearing me. I'm not going to JRTC. I had absolutely no idea in my mind how I was not going to go, but I just knew in my heart and I knew in my mind that I wasn't going to JRTC. Now, I'm telling you, I did not like actively try to make it to where I didn't go. I just knew that I wasn't going to go. Funny enough, I ended up not going because of my injury. I ended up not going. And I told people, I was like, I told y'all I wasn't going to JRTC. Now, did I do that on purpose? No. And did it suck to be on crutches for 5 months and have an injury and getting medically retired when I didn't want to? Yes. Well, now I'm happy about the medical retirement. But before, I was not for it. I was fighting against it. But I've come to learn to not fight against God's will for your life. Um, that's something a lot of you need to learn. It's a hard thing to learn, and you would rather learn sooner than later. But yeah, I ended up not going to JRTC, and a lot of people were like, oh my god. I was like, I told y'all I wasn't gonna go. I didn't know how, but I just knew I wasn't meant to be there, and lo and behold, I wasn't meant to be there. Um, that gum pulling his dress down and everything. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a mess over here. Another instance is where I told people I told them that I wasn't going to re-enlist. And what's funny is that a lot of people say that they're not going to re-enlist in the army, and they end up doing it. They're a year out, 5 months, 3 months out, and they say they're not going to re-enlist. And lo and behold, they end up getting in contact with retention, and somehow retention convinces them to sign 6 years of their life away with no bonus. And I told myself I'm not re-enlisting. And they're like, yeah, right, Willie D, yeah, right. You're gonna re-enlist. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not re-enlisting. And they're like, yeah, you are. That's what they all say. I'm like, I'm not. I'm not re-enlisting. Lo and behold, I end up getting medically retired, and God set it up to where it was impossible for me to re-enlist. He said, no, you're not re-enlisting. Because I'm telling you, if it was up to my own will of just getting out, I probably would have gotten out. And then re-enlisted. Or I probably would have ended up at the end of my contracts going to retention and say, no, I want to stay in. But that's not the plan that God had for me. He said, no, you're not re-enlisting. So I was like, okay, God, I hear you. But those are just positives that I've had in my life where I've spoken. To me, those are positives. That I've spoken into my life, and they've happened. And that really got my brain wired into thinking. I was like, man, what if I just sat in the mirror all day and just spoke positivity over myself the same way I was speaking negativity over myself? Can you just imagine how much my life would change? Can you just imagine how beautiful I would feel? Could you just imagine how powerful my words would be? Could you just imagine? Like, could you really imagine what could go on in my life if I spoke? And I know I'm on this topic for a while now, but could you just imagine the way that my life would change and how I would see myself and how others would see me if I spoke the same amount of positivity in my life the way I spoke negative in it? That's just a thought, but that was my starting point. Oh my gosh. I'm on my starting point. Oh goodness. Okay, wow. Anyways, so that for me was my starting point. Um now that was me reading again what to say when you talk to yourself. I'll put the book link in the description box just so for people that feel like they need to read it. Um but now for me, once I found out where I was, I knew I needed to start intentionally building. So, like I said, I started with myself, because how can you communicate with others well if you cannot communicate with yourself well? And that takes checking in with yourself. That takes being real with yourself. That takes being honest with yourself and seeing how you're feeling, and having sympathy, having grace, having mercy for yourself. Because I learned this from my mentor. She had told me, because I am a dominant choleric personality. So I'm a cutthroat, and I need things to happen now. I don't want to sit here and talk about people's feelings. I don't want to talk about my feelings. I'm not that kind of person. And so she told me that I need to show people grace and mercy. And I was like, she was like, you need to see them as a child. And I'm like, but they're not a child. They're a grown adult. And she's like, well, you don't know, just because they're physically a grown adult, maybe in their mind hasn't developed yet. And I was like, but they're a grown adult. And she was like, you need to start showing people grace and mercy. You need to start showing yourself grace and mercy. So anytime I'm dealing with people, I've tried it to where I see them as a child, and that's not to treat them as a child, but to see them as a child and handle the situation in that way. The same with myself. They say treat others how you want to be treated. I can't treat people nice if I don't even treat myself like a respectable human being, you know? Next thing for me was just learning how to communicate with others. And I think a big one for me was just the connection. I could tell people what I need. I'm the type of person where if you try to call me or text me when you need something and all you sit there and do is say, "Hey, how are you? How's it going?" No, I don't want to follow up. Just tell me what you need. I don't need that whole dialogue prior to you telling me what you need. Just tell me what you need. Don't hit me with the hi, how are you? How you been? No, I don't want it. Just tell me what you need. That was me. And so in that, I was the same way with others. I would just tell them what they need. There was no good morning. There was no hi, how are you? I'm like, but that's how I want people to communicate with me. So I communicate with them that way. Just go to them with what I need. I don't want to hear about your day and stuff because I don't really care for people to hear about my day. I'm just going to tell them what I need because time is money. So that's how I was. So I started to intentionally listen to audios and read books about that, about connecting with people. I've listened to the audio, Are You Connecting? Connecting with People, Connecting. I know it's a lot of audios. Those are three different audios. Connecting, Are You Connecting? And Connecting with People. I've listened to multiple John C. Maxwell audios. I've I'm reading right now. I'm reading his new book that just dropped, um, the 16 Undeniable Laws of Communication. And oh my gosh, when I tell you there's so many nuggets in here, and it's crazy because a lot of this stuff I already knew, but it's just like whoa, like John C. Maxwell said it, so it's a big deal, man. But in in his book, I'm learning how to form that connection with people. I'm learning how to slow down to speed up, how to just not become one with people, but just connecting in general. You know, not everything has to be business. You don't form relationships with everything just being business. And when they say slow down to speed up, they really mean slow down to speed up because the amount of time it takes for you to just be blunt with people, you're going to take so much time trying to get what you need instead of if you were to slow down, if you were to connect with each person you talk to, the amount of trust and relationship you'll have with that person in the long end, you ended up speeding up the process instead of just treating everybody like a McDonald's. You know what I mean? So, yeah, a couple things that I've just really taken. I've bookmarked a lot of things. A lot of this stuff that he talks in this book is basically, you need to have value in yourself. You need to see value in people and you want to add value to them as well. So it's on this journey of communications, it's kind of made me not selfish. It's making me not selfish because to be a good communicator and being a good leader, you can't be selfish because if you want to have value and then you also want to add value to people, you can't add value to people if you're selfish. You got to constantly go through life taking in information based off of, man, somebody can use it someday. You're not always taking the information for yourself. So you need to always be vigilant to the things that are going on around you so that you can take in that information for someone else. When you're going through things, you're enduring it for somebody else. And I know that sucks to hear, but that's just the truth. Somebody's going to need your story. Somebody's going to need something that you learn. And if you're not paying attention and you're not reflecting on those things going on in your life, how are you going to give it to somebody else who needs it? And so he's talking about having value in yourself, seeing value in others, and adding value. Um, Another one that I've just really been doing is studying people's speech, because I don't want to just be a good communicator. I want to be an eloquent speaker. So for me, what I've had to start doing is studying people's speech patterns, learning new words, studying how people talk to each other. I love to watch a good podcast just to see how people talk with each other. I love to listen to Martin Luther King and Maya Angelou and John F. Kennedy. And I may not I identify with all their ideals, but the point is just to see how they speak. The point is just to see how they get their point across. And for different people, I have different things. Like Margaret Thatcher, she's a very confident speaker. So I watch her because I want to be a confident speaker. I want people to, anytime I speak, I want them to drop everything and be like, ooh, Cailinn speaking. Cailinn speaking. Be quiet, everybody. She's speaking, right? Martin Luther King, he has the way he flows with his word. He has a sing-songy type of voice, and he gets his point across, and he hooks the audience, and they stay and captured in what he's saying, because he's not just talking monotone like this. He went to the store one day. I have a dream that one day my kids will be black and white and we'll sit together on the bus. He doesn't talk like that. He says, I have a dream today. Da 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 da. He has a sing-songy type voice. He has a good flow. He has a good pattern going for him. You have other people as well, like John C. Maxwell himself. He's a really good connector. The first thing he says when he speaks to people on stage is, "Hi, I'm John, and I'm your friend." That's immediately making them feel comfortable, immediately connecting with the audience. And so for me, I've had to find what it is that's mine. What is it? I would love to be a mix of it all from everybody. But I think that I need to find my strengths, focus on them, and see what it is that I could fix so that I could add value to people. Because how can I add value to people if I don't have value to give? You know? So, yeah, I mean, a few more key points that I've gotten from this book that just really speaks out to me is this one right here, right? And this was said by Winston Churchill. Before he can inspire them with any emotion, he must be swayed by it himself. You have to believe what you're saying. Before he can move their tears, his own must flow. To convince them, he must himself believe. That's why I said you have to work within yourself first in communication and leadership before you can even try to work in other people. I mean, probably the hardest person you're going to work through is yourself, because you put up barriers for yourself, you make exceptions for yourself, you make excuses for yourself. My boyfriend always says excuses are like buttholes and everybody has one. You only need one. Quit making plenty more. Quit making, no, actually, you don't want plenty more. Quit making more. You only need one. All right. And so, um, that's just what I've been learning so far about communication. I haven't fully finished the book yet, so I'm still going in, and I feel like communication is still a struggle for me, but I'm overcoming. I'm getting better. Where I was is not where I am right now because I'm measuring it. I'm definitely measuring it, and so I feel as if it's getting better. And if you're on a leadership growth journey, don't try to bypass communication. Don't try to bypass digging deep within and seeing where you're at first. Because if you do that, it's gonna come up somehow. It's like when you need to get some stuff out your system. If it's not gonna come out the back end, it's definitely coming out your mouth. Because it's gonna come out somehow. So you need to fix your inner self first before you start working on other people. You need to add value to yourself and have value in yourself before you add value and have value in other people. You need to fix your communication with yourself before you try to communicate with other people. And that's not to say you don't talk to people for like months. But as my dad always says, sweep around your own front porch before you sweep around mine. Kind of ordeal. So, yeah, that's all I got to say today. Um, really. Communicate with yourself before you can communicate with others. Communication is like, honestly, it's probably a lot more. It's like 90% of, no, I wouldn't say it's 90. It's like 85% of leadership growth. So don't bypass it. I'll put the 2 books in the description box. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all today. I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye.